This event has been organised through the EPSRC Network-H2 hydrogen network for transportation, and is part of an ongoing series which we're doing on different aspects of hydrogen research around the transport sector. And please keep your eyes out for many more. It's kind of happening about one every month, and hopefully when lockdown comes to an end, we'll be having many more face-to-face activities. This week, we're going to look at the challenges around compact onboard storage for transport. And we've got two speakers who will provide their own thoughts. We will record these talks as well. If you look on the Net Zero Research website, which is going on, and of course, if you miss this event or future events, you'll find them all on there. So I should say thanks for listening, and we do to continue these events going forward in 2021. And please, if you have any feedback for us, let us know. The key thing is really to get access to these events, please sign up on our website. We can then send you information about when the next one's coming up. Now, moving on to the speakers, Dr. Stuart Hawksworth. And Stuart is Head of Strategic Development of Major Hazards at the HSE. And his talk will cover safety around high pressure hydrogen storage. And yes, he's the head of the HSE Centre for Energy and Major Hazards and president of the International Association for Hydrogen Safety. And this association is the focal point for all hydrogen safety related issues. And it has been founded as an international non-profit institution. And hopefully he will be able to take control of the screen now and show us.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. So, afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Andrew. So, I'm Stuart Hawksworth. I head up the Centre for Energy Major Hazards at HSE. Our laboratories in Buxton in Derbyshire, which maybe some of you know, and I'll say a little bit more about in a moment. And I'm also the president of the International Association for Hydrogen Safety, which I will clearly say a bit more about as well. So, in terms of what I want to talk about, I'll give a brief introduction to a little bit on us at HSE, and I'll say a bit more about that as I go through the talk, but also on the International Association, which hopefully many of you are aware of, and talk about some of the things that are happening this year as well. I'll then just give a really kind of high-level run through some projects that are currently ongoing or have recently finished, looking at high-pressure hydrogen storage, and the safety of. Clearly, there are some engineering challenges, or some, not necessarily engineering challenges, but it is challenging to engineer for 700 bar and think about how you make those things work safely in all types of situations. And that's what some of these projects are about, and I'll talk about that as I go through. And then as I get to the end, I'll kind of summarize and also talk about a few events that are coming up this year that you might be interested in, kind of in the safety space. Okay, so just to say a little bit about IAHySafe, we've been around since about 2004. We're originally established as a network of excellence by the European Commission. The funding for that ended in 2009, at which point we were established as an international association. So we've been around for quite a while. This picture hopefully shows you some of our main activities. So IAHySafe in the middle there. Research and development projects, some down the left, some that have finished, some that are ongoing now. So Presley High, looking at pre-normative research into the safe use of liquid hydrogen, clearly quite important right now. And the High Tunnel project, which hopefully many of you know, pre-normative research into the safety of H2 vehicles in tunnels and other similar enclosures. And I'll say a little bit more about both of those projects later on. As an association, also heavily involved in regulations, codes and standards. So from the membership we have, which I'll show you shortly, we have a good mix of people who are doing research, people who are involved in regulations, codes and standards, people from industry, people in education, the whole range. And that kind of gives us this nice flavor, this nice mix to address many of the issues around hydrogen safety. So across the top there, regulations, codes and standards, and we have members who are involved in all of those areas and feed in and feed back on what issues there are out there, what safety issues happen as the technology develops, and feedback kind of as we understand those issues and bring safety solutions along. Down the right-hand side, we also interact quite closely with a range of organisations. So IEA, IPHE, the US Department of Energy, and the European Commission, obviously, are all organizations that we interact with and work for. And they support many of the events that we do, and we help them in helping their projects and helping understand where the technology is going and what developments need to happen. And then across the bottom, education and training. Some of the key things we do, including the International Conference Hydrogen Safety. So hopefully we've got our 9th conference this year in Edinburgh. We do that every other year, the conference. Fingers crossed we'll have it in September this year. In reality, I think it's going to be a virtual conference, I'm sorry to say. Our research priorities and workshop activities that we do in the years between the conference, and essentially that brings experts from around the world together to think about what's happening in hydrogen safety, what are the priorities that are coming along, and what do we need to focus on. And then there's a number of scholarship programs and summer schools, much of which is run through University of Ulster, who hopefully many of you know, and helping kind of develop expertise and knowledge in the community around hydrogen safety. Just a quick indication of the membership we have. So we're getting on for around 50 members now, and you can see there who we are. Mix of universities, government laboratories, large companies from around the world, governments as well. South Australian government are part of us now. So a good mixture of organisations who have an interest in hydrogen, understand the importance of safety, are studying safety, and are helping to kind of enable the hydrogen economy through what's happening in the safety space. And as we're all aware, this has now become a much more serious thing. Here in the UK, as I'm sure many of us are aware, hydrogen now is a really important part of the agenda. It's in there as part of Boris's 10-point plan, and some just really now is being taken very, very seriously, and will provide lots of solutions in lots of areas, I'm sure. I mentioned the research priorities activities. So this was from our previous research priorities activities, just to give you a flavour of the sorts of things we're thinking about. So down the left-hand side there, what are the scenarios, what are the technologies, what are the things that are happening? And then in terms of the risk controls, the engineering, some of the other things we need to do to ensure safety. The idea of this is the red dots are priorities. Orange dots are things which are kind of second priorities, and some of the others are clearly areas that we felt aren't that important. The blocks, red and green, represent the High Tunnel project and the Presley High project and the work that's ongoing there, and where it's foreseen that hopefully some solutions will come from the projects. And basically, it's a way of kind of bringing the community together and summarising the findings that we have. And we've recently had another workshop which we'll be bringing the output from fairly shortly. If you're interested, the report there is available on the HSE website. So obviously, clearly, I'm part of the regulator HSE, and we support this very seriously. And if you go and find HSE Research Report 1159, you can download that for free, and it gives you all the details of the activities that went on to kind of bring this summary together, and lots of the detail that supports it underneath. Okay. Just very quickly, just need to care about the left-hand side box on this picture. Clearly here we're talking mainly about transport. There may be some other areas where high-pressure hydrogen will be stored to support other things that are happening in terms of industry and power, but the focus very much at the moment in terms of lightweight is associated with transport. So cars and buses, I think we're already a little bit familiar with. A few cars in the UK, some good fleets of buses, London, Aberdeen and others. The London bus is now operating for almost 10 years. It's all gone very well, very reassuring for everyone, and clearly provides a good solution. Rail is becoming more and more of an important area. The number of rail projects, obviously, in the UK, and trucks and HGVs, perhaps not gaining that much traction just yet in the UK, but will become a really important area. And then less important in terms of probably high pressure storage of hydrogen, it is shipping. LH2 and ammonia are probably the areas that will be the real focus there, and I probably won't say too much more about that. Okay, just wanted to, so why do we care? What are the safety issues around storing 700 bar hydrogen in vehicles? Clearly, what we're concerned about is thinking about scenarios that could cause failure of such vessels. So on the whole, spontaneous failure of those vessels is probably not something that we're worried about too much. If anybody who's familiar with the GTR for the testing and design of such vessels. They are incredibly well engineered, very thoroughly tested, extremely strong. But there are clearly scenarios as these things become more prevalent in everyday life, in vehicles, in other applications, where we should be concerned about understanding what the consequences might be and what we could do to kind of mitigate some of that. So one area where clearly there's a concern is around fire. Typically, a vehicle tank is fitted with a temperature pressure relief device. So if it is involved in a fire, that device should operate and release the pressurized gas inside. And I'm sure many of us have maybe seen some of the pictures of those, which looks quite exciting in itself, but is a safe thing to do, and is clearly is adopted from good industrial practice. But it's thinking as well about if that device doesn't work, or situations where you might have multiple tanks, or and understanding some of that. A key kind of trade-off in the design aspects there are how quickly the tank loses its strength compared to how quickly you can get the hydrogen off board. And that's particularly relevant if you're inside a structure, which the High Tunnel project is about, and I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. But this is just taken from the FireComp project that finished a few years ago. I won't say too much more. You can see some of the key activities undertaken there and the members. It was an EU-funded project. The grant agreement details are there. And it clearly, some of the things it tried to think about is, as I've just described, composite cylinder behavior in a fire. What happens in terms of its loss of strength, heat transfer, what are all those things, and how can you improve them to improve tank safety? And on the right-hand side, there's some of the situations that have been considered in terms of applications and in doing a risk assessment in terms of those applications, and thinking about how to improve the safety and technology. And there's a few papers out there. I've given the details for the grant agreement there. You can go and find the report. Clearly, there's much more information. I said it's a bit of a canter through. Here's now talking about the High Tunnel project. So this project has been going for a couple of years now. It's coordinated by Vladimir Molkov, Ulster University, and you can see the partners there. And this is about, if we're going to operate hydrogen vehicles as part of everyday life, they will interact with infrastructure. They will go through tunnels, they will go into car parks, they will go into lots of enclosed spaces, and we need to think about that. And that's what the project is all about. It's looking at lots of situations in terms of different vehicle types, different environment types, how we can mitigate tank failure. So thinking about operation of the temperature pressure relief device, so releases into the tunnel, even spontaneous failures, kind of some other situations that might occur in terms of high pressure storage. Relevant to a range of applications, so thinking about rail as well as roads. And in the UK, we have some support from a number of organisations there. And if you know Vladimir, and I think he's on today, you can get much more information from him. And I've certainly got colleagues who could tell you a bit more about what we're doing in this. But hopefully this just makes you aware and gives you a flavour of what it's all about. Just to say, the ultimate goal of the project is to develop pre-normative data and kind of synthesize that data to come up with good standards for kind of structure design and interaction with hydrogen vehicles in kind of accident scenarios, so that we've got that for the future, as that's really not something that's covered very well at the moment. Okay, quickly mention this project. This is a new project that's just kicked off, Multihigh fuel. And what this is about thinking about getting hydrogen refueling pumps onto standard forecourts. So I'm sure many of you are probably aware, to refuel hydrogen vehicles, the pumps are generally offset, the refueling points are often private, they're behind a gate, up by appointment only. And in terms of, there are a number of things that obviously need to be addressed in terms of understanding how you can incorporate the hydrogen refueling pump onto a normal refueling station. So thinking about things like zoning, separation distances, understanding some of the domino effects that might occur in terms of impact of one fuel on another if an incident occurs. And that this project, which has just kicked off, is thinking about much of that. And you can see the membership across the bottom there. Again, an EU-funded project. I said I'd mention Presley High. So this is pre-normative research in safety of liquid hydrogen, perhaps not for road vehicles. As you go to larger amounts of fuel, maybe it's something that in the kind of medium term, it might become more interesting. So liquid hydrogen, clearly important, but in terms of handling it in kind of everyday situations, it's something that we need to be thinking about. And this is what this project has been about. So some of the classic things we're interested in: what happens when liquid hydrogen spilt. Clearly it's extremely cold, condenses the oxygen, the nitrogen out of the air. Some of the what happens as it's spilt in terms of falling on the ground, cooling the ground, forming pools, etc. And you get a flavour, hopefully, of some of the things that have happened in the project there. Just to show you a few pictures of testing we've done on our site at Buxton. We have a large site, about a square mile, where we do experimental testing. And this is spilling liquid hydrogen from a tanker onto the ground. Initial phase where you start to kind of cool the ground, chill the ground. Initially, you get lots of boil off. Then it starts to pool. If you have a spill for a long period and it pools, you then start to condense out the oxygen and the nitrogen from the air and start to form a nice slush, which you can see there, which can get quite interesting. And obviously, we've looked at combustion of all of those conditions as well to understand what the hazards might be and how you control them the best that you can. Okay, so that was a real dash through, I realise, but hopefully giving you a flavour of lots of the stuff that we're involved in. You know, there's quite a large community internationally, very interested in hydrogen safety, working hard on hydrogen safety, as clearly it's all about we need to understand and get on top of it to enable hydrogen as a fuel for the future. So just in summary there, I mean, clearly it's growing in importance for transport applications, making a big difference now, lots of things happening. And safety is essential, and for that I've listed a few things that we need there. Early involvement of safety is always important. This is a HSE mantra, building safety from the beginning. Don't think about it afterwards, because that's never a good thing to do. And some of the things we need are commitment, collaboration across all kind of parties, a strong evidence base for standards, which is much of the work we're doing is about, and then the effective standards and getting those out there as training. And a point I'd make, I think we all need to be ready for rapid growth. If this really takes off, there are going to be lots of people who are interested in using hydrogen, applying hydrogen, and maybe we won't be ready to do it all safely if we're not careful. And the picture I've included there is from the Korean incident that maybe many of you know happened not last year, I think the year before. And unfortunately, 2 people died in that incident, and there were some very serious injuries as well. Just quickly before I finish, in terms of the UK, HSE does lots of stuff in a whole range of areas, but particularly in the energy space. So some recent things that happened with the annual science review we did, and also the Foresight report. But I wanted to bring on the right-hand side there. We're doing this event 2nd to the 4th of March, Safe Net Zero 21. It's about hydrogen. 3 mornings of kind of bringing people together to discuss hydrogen and what's happening in the hydrogen space. It's free to join, so please join us. I think we have over 2,000 people signed up for this already, and it will bring hopefully lots of parties together to have some interesting discussions and hear about some interesting things in the hydrogen space and how we're kind of dealing with safety. It's covering transport, heat applications, industrial, the whole range. So please register and join us if you can. And then finally, I mentioned it earlier, the International Conference Hydrogen Safety, hopefully in September this year. Probably won't be a full-blown conference in Edinburgh. We're hoping to have some kind of representation from people, maybe chairs or something like that, but it's an online conference. The call for papers is still open until the end of the month or a little bit after, if you're interested. So the link there, please go and have a look. Safety is relevant in many areas, so if you've got something you want to talk about, please come and share it with us. So hope you found that interesting. Quick dash through, had a lot to say, I know, but hopefully gave you a flavour of what we're about and where we're going. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stuart. And I guess we should again send our virtual clap to you.
Thank you very much.
Open up the opportunity now to ask questions. Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone for attending the event. There will be another event which is on the 19th of February, which is focused on the energy conversion on an onboard vehicle, and there's a later one coming up specifically on aviation, which I think is in March. It's in the
19th
link
of March.
19th of March, and that's specifically around aviation. Thank you for everyone for attending, and I hope you have a lovely weekend.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Cheers, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.